Season 8 patch notes have been released and they are crazy. Even the teasers that showed potential changes for Mauga and confirmed ones for the rest of the crew didn't do this patch justice, since a lot of heroes have been changed, especially the ones that you totally didn't expect. Before we get right into the tank changes, the global ultimate passive nerf has gone through, where you now can only retain up to 15% ultimate charge when switching. 25% was a good chunk, so I can totally understand why they wanted to reduce it. Luckily, this isn't the biggest change. Counterpicking is still really effective with how good counters are, so you'll barely notice your ultimate charge rate being changed. But anyway, let's get right into the tank changes. Speaking of ultimates, Meteor Strike now heals Doomfist for 75 heals per second while in the sky. Just like how your cooldowns regenerate at double their normal rate, your health is now regenerating as well, making for a quick re-engage with only a couple of moments rest. You don't even really need to be getting all your cooldowns back or healing up to full every time you ult. You can easily land as early as possible, but still get a small bonus health boost and a good deal closer to your next cooldowns. This buff does come at the price of 16% extra ultimate cost, a very specific number that makes it seem like they tested it quite a bit. But with that 16% increase, you'll now have to deal around 250 damage more for every ultimate, literally nothing for Doomfist. That's just one team-wide slam or even just 5 shots hit with your hand cannon. It's definitely as close to a straight buff as you can get, while still offering a tiny composition nerf. Junker Queen is also in the new patch, with a spread reduction on her primary fire of 8%. Let me start off by saying that this is a totally unnecessary change, and will make Queen a crazy amount better. When dealing with shotgun heroes, especially with the range that Queen already has, decreasing her spread makes her deal a crazy ton more damage and at a higher range. The lower it gets, the more you can duel the more skinny heroes as well. You're not just limited to tanks or big hitbox DPS to actually deal good damage. This change means a lot, and I don't really think anything warranted it either. Queen's been good for a while, and now her damage output is getting even better. At least she's not being buffed in a way that gives her more versatility. Her damage is just slightly higher now. She'll be better, just probably not in a game-breaking new way. Next up is Mauga, who's being released with a whopper amount of changes. He's got 150 armor and 500 normal health for a total of 650. That is great for his survivability, especially as a tank that can get a lot of heals, and it's made even better by his reduced head hitbox. It's still pretty big, but not so big that you'll always get punished for it. But now for the big changes that weren't teased, his chain gun adjustments. The damage has been increased on both fire types from 4.5 to 5. The damage falloff has also been increased to 30 meters. Not just 25 anymore, but 30. That's better than Cassidy. Cole Cassidy, the long-range gun shooting guy. And that's apparently not enough because his ammo has also been increased from 300 to 350. Mauga is showing up to launch day beefed up. And there's even more. His movement speed penalty, which was a bit bugged during the free trial, is now at 15% per gun, down from 20%. The spread for firing both guns at the same time is also being reduced by 15%, making him not just a planet killer, but a world conqueror at close range. The only thing holding his gun back is that he no longer receives a 25% fire rate multiplier while shooting both guns. But I've got to be honest, I didn't actually know that was a thing until now. But it's gone now, so it doesn't really matter. He's still doing insane amounts of damage at close range and with both guns. So with the current version of the guns, you can still deal insane damage at all ranges, 90 damage per second with each gun and 180 with crits. That crit number is crazy since you're always able to do crit damage with your chain gun combo. Being able to deal 180 DPS as a tank at 25 to 30 meters range is unheard of. And of course, if you're close range, you'll be dealing 270 DPS to targets after you burn them, a ludicrous number. I know that they're trying to make Mauga strong on launch so he's not weak and is still fun to play, but they might have overdone it a little bit too much. And if you can believe it, there is still more. That's right, his overrun is no longer interruptible by hack. Okay, that's not as meaningful as the other changes, but what is meaningful is that they've gone through with 50% damage reduction during overrun. That's a big increase from 30, and it's safe to say that you can definitely escape almost any situation and also engage them more often too. I wouldn't say there's exactly a green light on 3-2-1 charging into the enemy all the time, but with your ultimate, yeah, go ahead for sure. Although his ultimate hasn't been changed, his cardiac overdrive and berserker passive have been boosted to help his survivability. Now his lifesteal aura is 70% of the damage you deal, up from 60. These numbers are dangerously high, and if you want another one, here it is. The berserker passive now converts 50% of the critical damage you deal into overhealth. If you're now dealing that 180 critical damage, you're literally healing for 90 overhealth per second, and that's overhealth. That can't be anti-healed. So maybe we've jumped the gun on Ana being a hard counter to Mauga just like with Hog. This is definitely a lot of changes for a hero that already seemed pretty good, but it's good to see them really pushing hard to get the hero into a decent state, so they don't spend 6 seasons buffing and nerfing him to try and make him perfect. Finally, moving on from Mauga, it's hard to top all that crazy stuff, but Ramattra's changes are impactful enough that he might be able to compete. 100 of his base Omnic form health has been replaced by armor, so he's now got that small armor buffer on top of 350 normal health for a pretty solid health pool. His projectile size has also been increased to 0.1 meters, basically from 7.5 centimeters to 10. It's not crazy big, but it's now on par with Sojin's rail shot and Genji's shurikens. It'll be much more consistent, but the scarier change is his damage increase. Just 4.5 to 5 doesn't sound like much, but it brings his staff damage from 112 to 125 DPS, just like Wrecking Ball. That's a nice solid multiple of 5 number, and it's now 25 DPS higher than your Nemesis form. Ram is becoming a lot better outside of only relying on his Nemesis form, and I'm here for it. It's gonna be hard to deal with the juiced out Mauga, but it's at least a good start. It wasn't expected, but Sigma's got a nerf to get him out of the meta faster than normal. The regen rate on his shield is down from 100 to 85. It's a lot easier to pressure Sigma to the point of actually making him fall back for a meaningful time, and over longer fights, Sigma will have a lot more vulnerabilities to exploit. I like this change, even though Sigma didn't receive a buff to bring him into the meta, and technically shouldn't really need a nerf to get out of it. At least the nerf makes sense, it's targeting one of his greatest strengths, his shield, and just 15 shield health per second isn't a massive reduction that makes it impossible to recover from the front line. I'm definitely expecting a lot of overreacting and dropping Sigma immediately. On the one hand, it is easier to force his shield down and then his kinetic grasp, but then again, good Sigma players don't rely on their shield out all the time, and are instead regenerating it as much as possible. Playing like that leads to your shield basically never dying, so if you keep playing him disciplined, you'll be totally fine. Next up, Winston has the prophesized armor-piercing Tesla cannon, and now he's going to obliterate the meta. Well, maybe I shouldn't jinx it because dive heroes are actually being buffed overall, so the extra damage against Brig might just be enough to actually fully overwhelm her as a mainstay in dive comps. Lucio or Kiriko might become better alternatives to play a faster backline that doesn't explode as soon as they get hit by the dive. And that's just the tank changes. Now for another unexpected nerf to Mei. The Sigma comp is really being targeted here. For Mei, it's her ammo that's taken the fall for her newfound success. It's down from 150 to 120, and this might just be a bit too much. Mei was already barely invited to the meta comp because of her good matchup into Sigma, and her ammo is a really touchy subject. Mei has to lay down a lot of pressure all the time and switch between her slow and her icicles. Having both of those on the same ammo makes it a lot harder to manage, and now that the cap has been decreased, it's a straight up nerf to Mei's overall impact in the fight. 120 may seem like a big number, but Mei needs really high ammo to be viable. It's one of the reasons why she regenerates it in her ice block. Tough luck for Mei, and it's likely that she'll quickly fade out of the meta after not even being that oppressive in the first place. And now for a lightning round. Soldier 76 has had a 3-second increase to his biotic field cooldown. This is one of the smallest and least impactful changes in the game ever, not just by raw numbers, but just in how little it matters to the current state of the game. I'll keep it short and sweet and just say, wow, okay, now you have to wait 3 seconds more to heal for a second time in the same fight. Yeah, not really a big deal. So, next up, Sombra. Her EMP has received another adjustment to make it stronger without compromising a more interactive neutral, and it's resulted in a 3-second ability lockout duration. That's a massive new change, but the damage has been nerfed slightly. Now it does 25% of your health, which is now 50 on squishy targets. But EMP has been the strongest ultimate in the game before when it did 0 damage, so it's probably going to be fine. 3 seconds is a lot to be unable to use any abilities. You have to consider how much damage Sombra herself can deal in that time. In those 3 seconds, she can do way over 400 damage, doubling the amount she needs to get a kill on a squishy. That's not even considering her virus that confirms 100 on hit. You don't need to hit every shot, but there's a lot of room to get picks on your own with EMP, even if you have no teamwork whatsoever. This change is going to mean a lot for Sombra's opponents too, so if you're playing against a Sombra with EMP, you're actually going to have to respect it starting now. Torbjorn gets another mystery change in time for Christmas, and it's a buff. Well, kinda. It's just a revert to his old overload health, which is now back to 100. I feel like recently we've been getting the smallest adjustments numbers-wise, but with insane earth-shattering impact that completely flips the hero on its head. This isn't maybe one of those, but 75 to 100 is a nice extra health block to keep yourself alive. 25 health is just a melee away from death, but it's 25 health that gives you time to get to a healing source rather than just tanking everything coming your way alone. Solid change, although I'm not too excited to see Tor back in the meta already. Although without that overload buff, Tracer's new increased bullet damage could bring her back to full ladder domination again. I guess it's pretty safe to have a viable counter dive option just in case. Tracer's damage is back to 6 per bullet, blessing her with 240 damage 1 clips once again. The breakpoints for the damage you can do in 1 clip is so important, and increasing it is massive. It's not an insane net increase buff out of nowhere, but it's meant to rebalance her after some bugs affected her spread and fall off range. There's a lot of spaghetti behind the scenes, but all in all, Tracer wasn't at her full potential until just now. She's looking to be a lot stronger, and the first people affected by that are the supports. And luckily there are 2 more changes than we anticipated. That's double what we're used to, so there's at least something to celebrate. So first off, Baptiste has had his primary fire ammo reduced to 36, another addition in the 5-year-long nerfing Baptiste saga. Maybe this one will do it? Not likely. Moving on, Brig's whip shot buff is extremely short-lived and has already been removed. She's back to 70 damage per whip shot, and nothing's really changed for herself. But losing what was at the very least a small increase in burst damage at the same time as Doomfist, Winston, Tracer, and Sombra are getting buffed is like a foreboding omen. Brig is already a pretty difficult hero to play, and now your own life is on the line thanks to the new Winston changes. Supports might be in for another dry spell where the only option is to kill or be killed. So far, this patch has been pretty drastic. The final 2 changes weren't teased at all, and they're for Kiriko and Mercy. The Mercy one is pretty boring, so let's start with that one. Now when you activate Valkyrie, it no longer disconnects your beam from your current target. I'm feeling the Mandela effect in full force here, since I swear they've already made this change once before. But regardless, it's a quality of life change. It fixes something that didn't make sense in the first place. For the big champion final change, we have Kiriko. I would have assumed that the rough reception to the tiny slap on the wrist she got in the last patch has made the devs more eager to tack on some more nerfs, but we've got 2 buffs and a nerf. It's not looking good, but at least the nerf is really hefty. The invulnerability duration, the whole thing that makes Suzu so good, has been reduced from 0.85 to 0.65 seconds. This is bound to be super impactful, since every time you're using Suzu, it's on someone who's under attack. Now everyone who's still attacking the target that is now invulnerable will be dealing damage again earlier and also waste less ammo while shooting the invincible target. It's also just less time that your target is completely invincible. Great. The nerf has a lot of levels to it, but Blizzard has still given compensation buffs to keep Kiriko constantly playable. She's definitely got some dirt on the dev team, since her healing projectiles now travel faster, now 18 meters per second up from 14. Again, this is a drastic change that makes her straight up stronger in a way that doesn't really fit in with the nerf either. The other buff makes a bit more sense for what they're going for, which is that the base healing she does with her Suzu has been increased to 80. And yeah, that means that she can heal targets for 110 when cleansing them of any status effect. Well, the bad ones at least. These changes just straight up make Kiriko's healing output a lot crazier. And keep in mind that Suzu will still heal everyone in its area of effect. Now that it heals 80 instead of 40, it's a big enough number that it can make a decent impact in the fight if you hit enough people. That's it for the patch notes for Season 8. Some of these are downright insane, but all for the better. Chaotic patch notes make for a lot of cool experimentation early in the season. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.